Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. It's Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things ready through a common sense lens. And you know, it's one of those situations where there's always those detractors out there that no matter how much math you give them, no matter how much proof you show them, they're still gonna be like, no, that Disney movie was a success. That Marvel movie was a success. Because that's what they do. We call them pixie dusters. We call them shills, simps, whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, boys and girls, 2 plus 2 does still equal 4. And after some basic back of the hand math, it was very, very obvious to anybody paying attention and being honest that Rachel Zegler's Snow White and Marvel's Captain America 4 obviously failed miserably at the box office. They lost the company a lot of money, and it did not end up very well for either one of these movies. Well, boys and girls, if you hadn't heard, Disney had its wonderful little quarterly earnings report yesterday, and guess what? Even Disney had to admit that Snow White and Marvel's Captain 4 absolutely tanked at the box office. As you can see here from the headline, Rachel Zegler's Snow White and Marvel's Captain 4 tank, Disney confirms. So yes, boys and girls, even the Walt Disney Company, Bob Iger's The Disney Company, had to admit that these movies were absolute failures, and all the media spin in the world didn't do them any good when they had to actually report honestly to their investors. So we're going to check out this article from Matt over there at cosmicbook.news, getting all of the juicy details and show you exactly how much money these movies actually lost. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, we're inching our way closer and closer to 1,900, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Does it surprise you at all that Disney had to finally admit the fact that these movies were absolute failures at the box office? Do you think this will actually make a difference to anybody out there in the world? Do you think anybody will actually start to be honest about how these things progress at the box office? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. If you'd like to support the channel and become a member, please check out the links in the description as well, and you will get your name at the end credits of every single one of these videos. All right, from Matt McGloin over there at cosmicbook.news. No surprise, but Disney officially confirms that Rachel Zegler's Snow White and Marvel's Captain America Brave New World movies are big fails at the box office. Snow White has only brought in $200 million on a budget reported to be north of $270 million. Ditto for Captain America Brave New World, which has only brought in $400 million and change, which reports the budget is actually around $300 million or more. We know about all of the reshoots that they were doing up until the very last minute before this movie came out. Like, this was they basically reshot this entire movie over the summer and then did even more reshoots back in October and November of literally the year before this movie came out. Like, this thing's costs were just adding up left and right. And from reports we've been hearing already, it looks like the Fantastic Four is going to end up going down the exact same route. And considering how much of a disastrous dumpster fire these movies were at the box office, I don't think it's going to cause anybody a big shocker that things need to change inside the Fantastic Four movie. So Disney released its quarterly earnings report on Wednesday. In its entertainment section, Disney admitted that both Snow White, which stars the controversial Rachel Zegler, and Captain America Brave New World, which replaces Cap with Anthony Mackie, flopped. Theatrical distribution results were comparable to the prior year quarter, as the carryover performance of first quarter's release, Mufasa, The Lion King, and Moana 2, was largely offset by the results of the second quarter releases, Snow White and Captain America Brave New World, which essentially means even though Mufasa and Moana 2 made money, the massive losses from Captain America and Snow White basically completely and totally wiped out any gains they had. Including the cost of their initial marketing campaigns. There were no significant titles released the prior year quarter. So yeah, needless to say, they might have made money on those other two movies, but that was offset by how bad Snow White and Captain America did at the box office. To explain the report, what the report from Disney says is that overall theatrical results were comparable to the same quarter last year, not better. Despite releasing two major titles this quarter, Snow White and Captain America Brave New World. The report reveals that the box office performance from earlier hits like Mufasa and Moana 2 helped, but those games were largely offset by the results of Snow White and Captain America. Offset means that the financial gains from the earlier movies, Mufasa and Moana, were effectively canceled out or reduced by the weaker performance and high costs of Snow White and Captain America. And Snow White was another one of those that they did a whole buttload of reshoots for that one as well. They included more stuff of her as a little girl. Of course, you replaced the 7 homeless people from San Francisco with 7 horrifying CGI abomination dwarfs instead of hiring just actual dwarf actors out there in your live action remake. But hey, you know, what's a few $100 million to Disney when you have massive losses like this racking up all over the place? So even though Disney made money from the earlier films, the disappointing box office and marketing expenses of Snow White and Captain 4 neutralized these profits, resulting in an overall theatrical result that was just comparable to previous years, which had no major releases. Literally, no major releases the year before, and they're saying it's comparable. So their box office was the same whether they released something or not. So yeah, and if you can hear jet engines flying over the top of me, I do apologize. The air show's coming in this weekend, and I don't live too very far away from a naval airbase. So yeah, shout out to the Navy. Yeah, I'm a veteran too, so I love the air show. I was an aircraft mechanic. I love it, all that stuff. Disney specifically mentions the cost of their initial marketing campaign, suggesting those costs were not recovered by strong ticket sales of Snow White and Captain America. Again, the report also notes that the previous year had no significant theatrical releases, so even though with 2 big-budget films this year, Disney didn't outperform that low baseline. Disney is indirectly admitting Snow White and Captain 4 flopped relative to expectations, especially considering their marketing spend. And you saw it, all of the marketing for like Snow White was all over the place. Same thing with Captain America, Brave New World. That stuff was everywhere. I mean, they spent money to send Anthony Mackie all over the country to show up to a bunch of movie premieres and stuff like that. And they spent a whole bunch of money trying to keep Rachel Zegler gagged and from saying anything else that was going to further devastate the box office that ended up being turned into a disastrous dumpster fire. And that's all Rachel Zegler's fault, because we had the exact same thing happen with the race swap, all the nonsense with the Little Mermaid movie, but that movie made almost a little over $500 million globally. And why? Because Halle Berry was nothing but sweet on the entire time on all of the marketing stuff. That was the direct opposite with Rachel Zegler. And Captain America, well, Captain America is not Falcon. Falcon's a great character on his own, but to go out there and replace Captain America just for the sake of diversity, inclusion, and equity, well, we've seen how that's worked out over the last few years. And now, finally, Disney has to be honest, at least when they report to their very own investors, because the law says they have to be, to confirm that no matter what all of the Spirit of the Age pixie dusters say out there, Captain America 4, Brave New World, and Rachel Zegler's live-action remake of Snow White flopped at the box office and cost Disney hundreds of millions of dollars. After all, they got exactly what they deserved.